Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Iron Purpose podcast. Next up on the podcast, I have Jason Volkers. He's a retired correctional sergeant who worked in corrections for 26 years. Had quite a long career, quite a successful career, and he got involved in a lot of stuff. And we dive into that in the podcast. We also dive into his faith and how it grew stronger throughout his career. We also talk about wellness, not only in corrections, but also in everyday lives, regardless of what job you're doing, how important it is to make sure you're taking care of yourself so that you can be there for your family, your friends, and frankly, anybody else around you that may need it. And then we kind of finish off the episode talking about self-defense. That's how I met Jason, was at a defensive tactics / use of force instructor training course a couple of weeks ago in Duluth. And we get to talk about that a little bit, how, in today's day and age, with it being kind of a scary place sometimes, how can we protect ourselves? How can we be ready to protect ourselves and other people, but also not let it make us afraid to go out and enjoy life by traveling and just being out with other people, not making us afraid of those situations, but being able to be prepared for them. And he's got some cool insight on that as well. Thank you again for tuning in to the Iron Purpose podcast. This is episode 27 featuring Jason Volkers. Stay sharp, everybody. All right, everybody, welcome back to the Iron Purpose podcast. This is episode number 27, and we got a special treat for you today. A couple weeks ago, I had the opportunity to go up to Duluth for some training. It was a use of force instructor training. I get to do that position through the jail, and we had to get certified on it. And Mr. Jason Volkers was one of the instructors there, and I got the opportunity to spend a couple days up there with him, and went, man, I really want to get this guy on the podcast. You got to pick his brain and let other people meet him too. So thank you, sir, for so much for coming on. Definitely excited for this one.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah, how you doing? What you been up to lately since I last saw you?
Good. Been still busy. I retired January 3rd of this year. I retired from 26 years of working at Sherburne County as their training sergeant. And when I retired, I was a little nervous because I thought I have a passion to teach, and I think it's my calling. And so I was kind of wondering what I was going to do. So I actually started my own company, and it's called JCT, Jason's Customized Training. And my thought was to go to a lot of training facilities in the state of Minnesota and train their correctional officers on all kinds of topics. So when I put this together, I hired an attorney, I got all my work together, paid my bills, whatever, and started my company. I had about 3 companies, agencies, jails call me and say, hey, we need you. We don't have anybody to do this training, so we need you. So I've been busy with that. I went to Hubbard. I did a few days up there at Hubbard County and trained their staff. I'm going to Blue Earth in August. I've got a couple other companies. Isanti wants me, and they want this training. So I've been busy with that. Wow. I've also been busy with the Tech, Alexandria Technical College, and their skills program. So for the last, I'm going on 18 years now. I've been teaching their skills program. And then I'm also been teaching their instructor development program. So I'm teaching people to be an instructor in use of force. So you took it through MSA, which is the Minnesota Sheriff's Association. Mm-hmm. So I've been doing that for 2005. I think I started the academy, and so I've been doing that. My biggest thing, I guess, if you want to call it, is that I love teaching people to be instructors, because there's not a lot out there, and there's no better platform than the in-person instructor, right? So I love being that in, not the online stuff. That isn't, I want the students to develop into somebody that I know that will continue to press on and teach staff what they need to teach or what they need to learn to be able to go home safe. It's a cliche. We say it all the time. I want you to go home at the end of your shift, but there's really a true meaning to that, and it's buried deep in my heart. that I firmly believe that I have this calling to teach and to tell people this is what we need to do to assure that you get to go home to your family.
Mm,
So, and if I can develop somebody to teach that and push that and keep moving that, that's, I mean, there's not a lot of them out there.
right.
There's not, and you know as well as I do, there were some people that are in each class that are there because they're voluntarily told to be there. It's not, well, I guess I can do this, and I'll, it looks good on my resume, or, and the 26 plus years I've been doing this, it's never been a thought process for me to say, yeah, this will look good on my resume.
Mm,
This, I've always had a steady purpose on what I was doing, and um, whether my audience was a bunch of 12th graders that are in high school and getting ready to go off to college, or it was veteran staff members, it didn't matter my audience. I just knew that my goal was to give them some ammunition to understand the safety that comes in our daily lives. I know we're going to get into this in a little
yeah,
bit, but that was my calling. And back to your original question, I know I'm rambling, but
I love it.
I've been really busy with that, and it's been a good busy.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, now I think about it, I don't know how I got my work done when I was working. I'm so busy right now, but it's a good busy.
Yeah, retired. You're yeah, more busy.
Right. Yeah. Right.
No, I like what you were kind of saying there, and it's like that quote. What is it? Give a man a fish, and he'll have a meal or something. But teach a man to fish, and he'll never go hungry. It's
Yes.
kind of
Yep.
that thing. Yeah, you wanna teach somebody how to do it so they can continue to provide for other people, and that's powerful. That's super cool. But speaking of fishing, you got anything else going on other than working? You get to enjoy the summer coming up. Got any big plans for
I
anything like
do.
that?
I got two little grandkids, and they're 3 and 4 years old.
Hmm.
And so this year, every year we go camping a lot. My mom is 85 years old. She still drives her own motorhome.
That's
My dad
awesome.
passed away about 4 years ago, but she still
Hmm.
camps every weekend. She drives this big 32-foot motorhome, and she wants to go camping every single weekend. So generally, my sister, who lives right down the road, and my family, we all get together and we pick certain weekends and certain places to go. So I think maybe June, I think there's one weekend that I'm home. Otherwise, we're camping. July, we're camping. August, we're camping. Last month, we were camping. So it's a lot of, and I love it. I love every bit of it.
Amazing. That's
Yep.
awesome. Where do you guys go? Are you still in the Sherburne area or
I am. So I live
okay?
in Elk River, and we generally go to Sauk Center. They've got a beautiful place up there. And then we do miscellaneous like Mankato. We go down there a couple
Hmm.
times.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's Hinckley. We do Hinckley. And then we do a big week to 2 week long vacation up in Bayfield, Wisconsin,
Yep.
the Apostle Islands. It's just
Sure.
absolutely beautiful up there. So we spend a good week up there and camp up there.
Fun. Good stuff. Yeah, we're trying to. My high school buddies and I. Um, One of them, he just finished up optometry school, so he's been gone down in Missouri for the past few years, and he's finally back. So there's five of us, but four of us are going to the Boundary Waters at the end of the month. I've been up there once, but it's kind of in the Ely side. But we're going to try to get up there and do some portaging and kind of rough it for a while. So camping, I can definitely relate with the camping, getting out and enjoying the weather, and maybe do some fishing and just kind of getting out and in creation and enjoying it. Especially when you got friends and family around, there's nothing like it.
Yeah, and there's something to be said about when you get away from the cities
Mm.
and how the stars are so much brighter.
Oh
I
my
mean,
goodness.
things are so much, they're so different than, I've got friends of mine that are, they haven't left the cities, right? And then when they finally go up camping, we went up to Duluth one year and we, golfed up there. And one night we had the campfire out there, and I'm like, look how bright these stars really are. I mean, that
Mm.
you don't see that when you live in the cities or in a big city. You don't get that.
Hmm.
So
Yeah, I love the stars myself. I grew up the Brainerd Lakes area. It's not a big city by any means, or town, but I was 20 miles north of there. Is where I grew up, and I come home from work during nights growing up, and I just sit out there and look at the stars for a while, and it's just I'm glad you brought up stars because they're just I think they're just very underrated things. People don't, you just see them, stars. When you get a chance to sit there and like, whoa, like this place is a lot bigger than my problems. Kind of brings you back to reality. It's awesome.
Yeah, it helps to contemplate life issues.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
hmm Before I ask about your story and let you get into that, I noticed you got some patches behind you. I'm a big patch guy. Would you is that your whole collection there, or how did that start?
So I started that at my work, and I collected a patch from each county that came to Sherburne and trained with me.
Hmm.
So whoever came to train with me, I'd ask them to bring their patch. And then I have a couple specialty patches. I have one that is from the Secret Service.
Oh
There
wow.
was a friend of mine that I knew that worked for the Secret Service, so he actually sent me his patch. And then I got a couple Federal Reserve patches that are special to me. And then, of course, in the bottom left, if you can see that, I have my all my breast cancer awareness.
Oh cool.
My wife she had breast cancer in 2012. She had 7 surgeries in about a year. It was
Wow.
a couple of them were kind of touch and go, but so we've been celebrating that obviously every year.
Yes, sir.
So
Yeah,
I try to get as many of those breast cancer awareness patches as I can.
that's really cool.
Oh yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks for sharing that. Yeah, I don't know what to do with mine yet. Last I counted, I probably had 60 some. I used to work at the county I work for. I used to work on the roadside doing transports from different jails. So
Mm-hmm.
if I was ever going to pick somebody up or bring somebody to somewhere, I'd call ahead and be like, hey, can I swing in? I got some patches, and we do some trading. And I was actually in Nashville with my wife she was on a work trip, and I got to tag along. And I there was an officer just kind of standing by in the street, just kind of making sure nothing got too rowdy. And I said, I have a patch. You guys, do you know anybody that trades in the area? Because every department seems to have like a patch guy or two. And so they got on the radio and they're like, yeah, one of them. There's one guy, but he's on a traffic stop right now, but he wants to talk to you when he's done. So I was like, okay. So I waited and I go back there. Well, the word had got out that I had patches and that I was looking to trade for some Nashville patches. So like 3 squad cars come pulling up and they come out. What do you got? What do you got? So trading me challenge coins, and I'm like, I only got these 3. So whoever wants them. So it was pretty cool. Got a Nashville patch from those guys. But it's cool to see the camaraderie that can come together when in trading and something like that. When we do have work in the field that we do or that you're involved in, it can be dark, it can be difficult sometimes, and to have that camaraderie with those guys, especially from different departments, and coming
Yep.
to trainings like the one that you put on, it's cool to see the different counties come together and learn from them and get to know them. And I haven't been in contact with them quite yet, but we got the opportunity to kind of share numbers and get a group chat going in case we ever did run into anything to pick each other's brains. But I really enjoy the patches. It's like just a sense of community rather than just looking at your own. Even though there is a community within your one patch, it's cool to
Sure.
see that you have support from everybody around you. Just a
Yeah,
little
and
visual reminder.
they all seem to have their own little story too. So sometimes it's kind of nice just to reflect back to that. I'll walk by every now and then and I'll take a look at it. Like my big patches that I have up there, they're from 9/11,
Oh
and
wow,
I got a little bit of story with that. We'll probably get into that later, but that
yeah.
that was a really memorable day for me on that day. So, and then there was a friend that hooked me up with the big 9/11 patches, which was pretty cool.
That's super cool. Well, speaking of stories, now I'll give you kind of the opportunity to share your story, like we talked about. You can go as far back as you want, and kind of bring us to now, kind of what you went through, good or bad, to kind of bring you, make you into the man that you are today. So
Sure.
take it away, sir.
Yeah, I'm going to start from when I started work at Sherburne County because that kind of changed my life.
Yeah.
Prior to that, I was building cabinets. I built cabinets for a local company, and I did that for 13 years. And my drive time was an hour 10 one way.
Wow.
And I got to a point where I didn't want to do that no more. So a friend of mine who was the canine officer for Sherburne said, "Hey, they're going to open up this jail. It's going to be big. You should get in there and be a correctional officer." I said, "Well, I don't know anything about being a correctional officer. Didn't go to school. I'm not a cop. I don't know. You feed them and that's all you do. No big deal." So I looked into it. It was a good pension, good retirement plan, good health insurance. I just had my second daughter. It was good pay. It was $1.50 more than an hour than what I was making at the time. So I thought, okay, the big selling point was that it's 4 miles from my house.
Ooh.
So I figure an hour 10 one way or 4 mile or 4 minutes one way. So I got the job. Didn't know really what I was doing. And when I got in there my first day, they asked who I was. And I said, well, I'm the new guy. And they said, hey, we hired somebody? I'm like, yeah, I hope you hired somebody. Uh,
Surprise.
uh, yeah, right. My third day in there, they had me follow some guy around. My fourth day in there, they said, hey, we're short staffed. Can you work a housing unit on my fourth day?
Wow.
So I didn't want to sound weak or anything. So I said, sure, I can do it. It was direct supervision. There was 38 inmates in there. So again, I came from building cabinets, so I had no clue. When I came into that housing unit and all inmates were out, my thought process was, hey, this is not right, because the only thing I know about jails is what I've seen on TV or in the Hollywood, Orange is the New Black or whatever. So I'm thinking, well, it shouldn't be too long before I get shanked, or I mean, how does this work?
Mm.
Right. And so I finished that week and I told my wife I was going to quit. And she agreed with me. She thought it was super dangerous. And so I came in on that Monday, and my boss said to me, when I told him I was going to quit, he said, well, what's the problem? I said, well, I don't know what I'm doing in there. I don't, the inmates are actually running the housing unit. They're telling me when lockdown times are. They're running it, and I don't know how I'm making it out of there. I don't have a gun. I don't have a shotgun. I don't have a. And he said, but you got wits. I said, yeah, I got wits. And you understand the basics of how you respect somebody. You get an inmate handbook, you read the inmate handbook, and your job will be slick. I said, oh, really? Yep. You get to know the inmate handbook, and you're going to be good to go. So I got the inmate handbook. I read it. I learned the rules. I treated people with respect. I got the thought process out of my mind about that they were criminals, they were cons, I, I looked at them as a normal human being. Some of these people have just made a mistake. And for the most part, none of them have been sentenced yet. So I need to treat them according to the behavior that they give me. And I tell you, that was the foundation of the rest of my career. When I was able to treat these people with dignity and respect, regardless of what they were brought in for, it really made my job a lot easier because they were actually respecting me. When I would admit things like, I ain't got a clue. I have no idea what I'm doing here. Let me go see if I can find an answer for you. They respected that. And I got a lot more feedback, positive feedback from them than when I first started. And I was, I'm wearing a badge. I'm the one that's in charge. That didn't go very far.
Mm-hmm.
I actually had one inmate come up to me one day and he said, can I tell you something? I said, sure. He goes, you walking around with that handbook and telling everybody they have to follow these rules? Some of these guys in here are looking at 20 to 30 years. You think they're going to care about you and your rules? If you treat people with respect, you might make it out of here today. And that really struck home to me. Like, well, I'm just, trying to do my job here. I don't know anything about corrections. I actually made that announcement. I yelled at the whole pod. I got their attention and I said, guys, I'm sorry. If I'm being disrespectful to you by me walking around with this handbook, I don't mean to do that. I'm just trying to do my job. And the only thing I know is this handbook that I have.
Mm-hmm.
So please, don't take any disrespect by this. And I'm open for whatever you guys got to tell me. I don't want any, and they're like, yeah, whatever, and I think that worked. I think my honesty and my forthcoming to them that, hey, I don't know what I'm doing, and I'm not going to claim that I know what I'm doing. And I think that worked. Obviously, I made a 26-year career out of it. So that was a good thing. So I started that job. It turned my life around in a lot of different aspects to it. I wasn't really a faithful man. I knew about God, but I didn't know God, right? And so when my daughter started to get to the age, they started going on mission trips. At this time, I've already started my training career as a training instructor. I was certified in CPR and first aid. So one of my daughters, when they went on a mission trip, they had some funny money raising things to do for the mission. And one of them was they hired me to do a CPR first aid class. And then all the money that we would make, I would donate it back to the mission trip.
Mm.
And so that worked out well. We made, I don't know, $1,500, $1,600 on
Wow.
it. And I ended up going on the mission trip. And not to get too long into that, but there were some things that happened on that mission trip that changed my perspective on how I deal with people, how I treat people, how I don't judge people, um, how I present myself. And it really turned things around for me in the instructing portion of it. I believe that God has given all of us a gift, and we have to figure out what that is. And that's the hardest part of our lives, is to figure out what his plan is, right? He says in Jeremiah that he has a plan for us and to prosper us. And we get that, but if he could just be a little bit more clear on what that plan is, that would really be helpful.
Yes, sir.
But we all know that we have this gift. What it is, we don't know exactly, but I believe that my calling is to teach, is to instruct. And I'm going to do that as long as I can do that. Mm-hmm. So in my career, I started making these PowerPoints and, the use of force. And you saw some of the things that I placed in my PowerPoints, and some maybe Bible verses and sayings. And I reflect to that a lot. I'm one of our stress reducing topics is the relationships, faith relationships, taking care of those. As a disciple, that's what we're supposed to be doing, right? Mm-hmm. So, and I've been trying to do that as much as I can without getting into too much trouble. And that little bit of that background of that story, but again, I believe that this is what I'm supposed to be doing. I've had numerous, and it's actually a blessing that I've lost count. How many people have come to me later on in their career or in training or whatever it might be, and say, hey, thanks for sharing your faith. It's refreshing to have that. Mm. And I have that, but I'm just not sure how to share that. But I got a little bit more information about how to share that by watching you. So, again, I think that's just reaffirming that this is what I should be doing. Mm. When I sat down with the Alexandria Technical College, and we went through my PowerPoint, and I had that one slide about Psalms 144, and they looked at that and they said, well, the college, we don't promote that. And so therefore you can't have that in your PowerPoint. And so, against my better thought process, I decided that I was going to leave it in the PowerPoint. However, my time doesn't start on the clock until 8 o'clock in the morning. And so I would have that PowerPoint slide up until 8 o'clock. And then at 8 o'clock, I would go to the next slide and be done with it. So where there's a will, there's a way. So, and again, I'm trying to encompass a little bit of that into each one of my training. Mm-hmm. I don't want to be overbearing. And I understand that sometimes that can be overbearing to a lot of people. But I don't use my training or my platform as a podium. That's not my deal. But my deal is to give if I have 10 people in the class and only one person hears me, I'm okay with that. Mm. I'm okay with that. If the other 9 don't hear me or don't want to hear me, I'm okay with that. But I reached one. So, as I went through and did my CPR classes, and then I started doing defensive tactics classes, or I call them safety awareness classes, for schools, kids that were going off to college and whatnot. So I started doing that for the Zimmerman School. I had one child come up to me after the class, and he wanted to know a little bit more about my faith, which kind of blew me away, right? One of the things that happens with our children's and our youth is that they're involved a lot with church, whether they want to be or don't want to be, but they are at a certain age all the way up until they get confirmed. And once they get confirmed, there's nothing out there for college students.
Mm-hmm.
My daughter went to the University of Morris, and she had to struggle a little bit to find a life group, a Christian-based group.
Mm-hmm.
And she went to the local churches, and most of them didn't have really much for their age, college age. And she ended up hooking up with one, and it really benefited her. But that's the problem that we have in our society today, is that we don't have that continuing faith, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and then all of a sudden they get to an age where they graduated from college, and now they're going to have that boyfriend, girlfriend, and now they're going to get married. Oh, we better get back to a church
Right.
thing. And I think I want to try to catch that middle portion. So again, going back to the original story that we were talking about, I'm trying to encompass that in a lot of my trainings without overdoing it,
Right.
which is sometimes a hard thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
So my new company, I have taught inmate supervision classes, defensive tactics classes, con games, the art of manipulators, verbal judo classes, correctional search procedures, report writing, officer wellness classes, which is going to get much bigger. We do it for the academy, but it is so widely accepted now because it seems to be a hot topic. Officer wellness, guidance to stress management.
Mm.
We work in an environment that is so harsh. I mean, there's correctional officers and law enforcement and military are the two highest occupations that have the highest divorce rates and suicide rates. And so because I've been given this ability to teach and to have this type of topic, again, it's got to be a calling, right? So I'm pushing to have that a bigger class. Right now, it's about an hour to 2 hours. I'd sure like to have it a lot longer than that, because a lot of people have come to us afterwards and said, "Fantastic class. I just wish it was longer."
Right.
How do we deal with our life? How do we deal with stress? How do we deal with? I mean, there's all kinds of things on Google, but we know that half of that stuff is,
Right.
you know what I mean?
Yes. Yeah. It can be a little phooey at times.
Right. So, got going in my career, and then when my wife suffered from the breast cancer issue in 2012, we overcame that one. And so again, I can see that was God's path, was for me to go on that mission trip and to find my relationship with him. And then, because he knew that I had something big coming in my life, and sure enough, it was. I had to deal with Cheryl and her breast cancer. We overcame that. And then that was about 6 years ago. My oldest daughter has a brain tumor that she had to deal with. So it's good news, though. It's benign. It's not growing. But she was placed on medications that would prevent her from having children. So we looked, we searched, we found, she did, we found a doctor that was going to change the medications to allow her to have a family. And with God's blessing, we now have 2 grandchildren.
Oh, wow. I just got goosebumps.
Cool.
That's amazing.
Pretty cool. Yeah.
Wow.
So again, then I, got up to January 3rd this year, and I retired. I retired because they wanted to change my position at my work, which is another different story. But they said I could go back on the floor and work as a sergeant on the floor, just not in training anymore. And I said, no, it's not my deal.
Mm-hmm.
So I could have retired 5 years ago at the age of 55, and I just loved my job doing what I was doing. And then when things change, people always say God has a plan for you. He's got a direction for you. You just got to trust in him. And I thought, but I've been doing this for 26 years. I don't want to change. I'm comfortable doing this job. It's really hard to put something down and believe that this is the direction I'm supposed to be going. But when it first happened, I asked my wife, I said to Cheryl, well, what do you think I should do? And she said, I think you should trust in God. And so I put in my resignation and and retired January 3rd. And I tell you, it's been a whirlwind since then.
Wow.
I've been slapped in the face so many times with blessings. It's you know, I know God's up there laughing. He's just laughing. You know, I had a friend of mine once say, "Do you want to make God laugh?" And I said, "Yeah." He goes, "You tell him your plan.
All right.
That'll make him laugh." I said, "Yeah, that's funny."
Absolutely. Yeah, you think you have it all figured out, and then especially even after the fact when you're like, man, well, I don't have this all figured out, and then later on you look back and go, oh, okay, that's why that happened. And that's
Right.
why these things happen to get me to here where I'm supposed to be now. Do you think you would have gone on that message trip had you not been in corrections? You think that opportunity would have presented itself? Because my understanding of your story is you were in corrections, so you were in a place where you were teaching first aid, so you got involved a little bit more, and then you went on that trip. Is that kind of the case, or maybe not?
Yeah, you know, my faith really didn't raise its head until I got into corrections.
Mm-hmm.
I had some issues early on in my life when I was in eighth grade, and so I had to deal with some things, and uh, but it really didn't hit me as far as my faith or my stronghold that it had on me until I got in corrections. So what I mean by that is that when I got into corrections, I started seeing the pilot outreach people, and they were coming in and they were doing their Tuesday afternoon sessions with the inmates. Sundays they were doing churches and whatnot. And I started watching that, and a couple of guys that were coming in, I noticed from the church that I attended. And so
Mm-hmm.
we got talking about things, um, and then the chaplain for our county, his daughter swam with my daughter in high school, and so we got talking to each other. And then I became the commander of the honor guard, and he was our chaplain. So we would do ceremonies together, and he would start to counsel me in some things, and um, it just, I think without corrections, I don't think I'd be where I am today.
Mm-hmm.
Not to say that, it wouldn't have happened somewhere else, but there were sure a lot of signs there's sure a lot of things that happened when I was in corrections that pointed me towards my faith, that said, here's another direction, and here's something else you need to do. Oh, by the way, here's something you need to pay attention to, and give thanks for this. And so, yeah, to answer your question, I think corrections had a big play into me going into a stronger faith and sharing that faith.
Absolutely. And now that it's not necessarily a part of your life anymore, it is now presented this opportunity of the next chapter. God's like, I want you to stop here because I need you here for this time, but then I want you to be done here because I need you over here to help these people and be a light and shine for these people in this capacity. So it's crazy how it all works out
Yeah,
sometimes.
and
You,
you hit that on the head, Bailey. Uh, the chaplain friend of mine, Tom Sterneman, he said that to me. He said that if you're not going to work here, that means God's done with you here.
mm,
You've touched enough here. He wants you somewhere else. He wants you to go somewhere else. Maybe there's some student that's going to come through Alec Tech College, and he's going to take that class, and he needs to hear the word of God.
mm,
Or maybe it's MSA, Sheriff's Association. He wants you to go up to Duluth, and he wants you to train up there, and he wants you somewhere different. So you
mm-hmm.
just trust in him. So
Absolutely. Sometimes it's difficult getting out of that boat. Like Peter, he says, walk on the water, come on over to me, and you're like, I don't know, it's kind of this boat is kind of nice.
yeah,
Been here
right.
for a long time. Are you sure? And it's like,
Yeah,
doesn't
and
mean that
even
we're.
and even when he stepped out of the boat, he was still a little unsure and started to sink.
Mm-hmm. Man, how relatable that is as I get older, just and have more experiences. Go, oh man, yeah, I really. It's like Peter, get out of the boat, man. But then you put yourself in his shoes, and you're like, oh man, yeah, I'm drowning. I'm already reaching up. I'm not even in the boat anymore. I'm
Yeah,
struggling. But yeah, that's amazing. You touched on a little bit in the beginning how you learned to respect these guys in the jail and kind of have a different approach to rather. And it's cool that we're having this conversation. I just had on one of my partners at the jail. He's a programmer there, and he helped design this program called Impact, which stands for Inmates Making Positive Advancement, Choosing Transformation. And so it's a program where they got to apply to come into it. They got to interview to be in there. But we go through a workout time, we go through meditation time, and then we go through the topic of the week. And each week has different days within it. But all that to say, my buddy, he came from LA County, where it was kind of, you put your gear on and it's us versus them mentality. Like, these people are bad and we need to lock them up, and we're going to tell them what to do, and they're going to respect our authority and this kind of thing. And he transitioned to the county that we're in now, and working with this impact program, you kind of get to know these guys on another level. They kind of open up a little bit about different things that they've dealt with growing up, and a lot of them do talk about the lack of mentors or people to help to guide them in the right direction, or maybe some of them even do talk about their faith and how it's held them afloat throughout their charges and stuff. But all that to say, through your experience, what did you do to kind of maintain that respect while also maintaining order and I guess discipline within the jail, especially when you see some of the charges that these guys come in on? And I've had to try to explain this to other people before, but I'd like to hear your thoughts on that, especially if it's they come in on, if it's some abuse cases or maybe even like murder cases, and you still got to talk to them, you still got to interact with these people. What was your philosophy with that?
Sure. And you kind of touched on it. One thing that I stopped doing to help me was I stopped reading their complaints. I mean, their charges.
Mm-hmm.
So I used to read them all the time, exactly what happened, what they're being charged with. I stopped doing that because that's really not fair. People aren't sent to jail for punishment, right? They're sent to jail as punishment. I mean, that's you did something wrong. Now you need to go to jail. We're going to figure it out. You're going to see a judge. So when you're in jail, how your behavior is to me is how my behavior is going to be to you. I'm going to treat you with respect as a human being. And even if you go above that line or cross that line and you want to disrespect me, call me names, whatever, I'm still going to treat you with respect. I don't want to know your charges. I don't care what got you in here.
Mm-hmm.
I need to treat you for how you're treating me now. That's the purpose of a correctional officer, is to make sure that we maintain safety and security, right? So, but I don't want to be judgmental. I don't want to be, because subconsciously you will treat people differently, right? So if somebody comes in on a CSC charge, a criminal
Mm-hmm.
sexual conduct charge, and that, right? And then you read their case, and they let's say they abuse a child, an 8-year-old, whatever. You subconsciously will treat that person differently. Even though I've had people tell me, no, I'm pretty stable. I won't. No, you will. Your
Mm-hmm.
tone of your voice will change. You'll look at them differently. You might say things behind their back to somebody else. You're going to treat them differently because of their charges, as opposed to the guy who got a DWI or the person that killed his family. You're
Mm-hmm.
going to treat them subconsciously. It's a human reaction that we do. So I think to prevent that, let's not read their charges. I don't care what got you here,
Mm-hmm.
right? If you're over here and you're doing something wrong, you have some contraband in your room, I'm going to take care of that. I don't care what got you here. That doesn't matter to me. What matters to me is how you're treating me right now.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Right. And that's something that I've had to do as well, is to just not read the charges. And some of them you do see, especially if you're booking them in. But like, you also have the opportunity to dig deep into actually the whole probable cause or the complaint or whatever, to see what happened word for word. And I've told people the same thing. It's like, it's not my job to judge you. That's for the judge. I'm not the one that brought you in here, and I'm not the one that's going to judge you and decide your case. I'm just the one that's in the middle that's got to take care of you while you're here. And a lot of times, some of those guys will give the respect back. They're like, "Oh man, you really don't care?" It's like, no, I don't. I don't care to know, because that's not what I'm here for. I'm here to try to shine my light. Try to be a good example. Try to be the best that I can be right here, right now, for the guys that are around here, because you never know who's watching, and maybe a conversation with them had, maybe I wouldn't talk to a certain person because of those charges. And now I don't really care to know, or I don't know, and I'm talking with them normally. And, that opportunity, just having that conversation, just treating them like a human, like a person, really can really go a long way,
right.
especially with, maybe different situations. And when it's a high stress environment kind of thing, and they just see badges and they see, the uniforms, coming in and taking them and whatnot, like, it has to happen. But And they can kind of get the opportunity to see the person behind the badge and know, oh, okay, this guy's all right. And then in the long run too, a fight does break out in the unit, or one of these guys does try to come after you. That guy's going to remember, hey, this guy's all right. He has, he's just a human, just like me. I'm going to stick up for him too, so that he can go home to his family, kind of thing. And
Yep.
but there is that line too. You don't want to compromise policy and procedure for for the kindness of to help these people out. But you can still do your job and be a nice person at the same time. And I think that goes for any profession, not just law enforcement.
Yeah. And you make a good point. There is a line. And in the con games training that we talk about that line. And a lot of times we get so comfortable in what we're doing, all of a sudden it's like, hey bro, what's up this morning? We're all of a sudden we're using nicknames, and we're, treating them with respect is in law enforcement and in corrections, it means a whole different thing than what you think, right? I'm going to treat you with respect. Mr. Bailey, how are you doing today? Sir, how are you doing today? It's not going to be, Bailey, what's up, man? Bro, what's going on? I'm not going to get that comfortable, and nor should anybody get that comfortable with it.
Mm-hmm.
But if you treat somebody, there was a guy that came in one day, and he had a really super long name, and nobody really could know how to pronounce his name. We asked him, and then he would say his name, and nobody knew how to pronounce it. One of our booking officers said, can we just call you Alphabet? When nobody can say your name, can we just say Alphabet? Because he had like every letter in the alphabet. And he says, yeah, that's cool, man. That's cool. And he was okay with that.
Mm-hmm.
One of the topics that I talk about in the con games thing is how do you want to be addressed? Do you want to be called a CO? Are you an officer? Are you Bailey? Are you CO Bailey? Are you what do you want to be referred to? And usually when I ask that question, a lot of people are like, oh, I'm CO Volkers. You call me CO Volkers. You call me Officer Volkers. And then you'll have some people go, I'm okay with Jason. I'm when I worked in the jail, I was okay with Jason. I didn't care if inmates called me Sergeant Volkers. Didn't bother me at all.
Mm-hmm.
But if I had an inmate that would come up and say, hey, Jay, you got a second? I'd be like, it's Jason. And yes, I do have a second. What's going on?
Mm.
So they knew the line. You're going to try, but this is the line. I'm going to, I don't want to be this guy,
Right.
But yeah.
Love that. There was one other thing that I had written down. So like you talk about, you have a whole list of trainings. I wanna let's talk afterwards. Maybe pick your brain on some of those and see if you got any coming up that I could attend. But we'll talk about the wellness one. And we're already almost at 45 minutes, which is crazy. But throughout your career, was there a point where you were at and if you don't mind sharing, at like a lower point where you're like, man, I really need to figure out how I can, get in check on my wellness, or maybe there's another officer that was in a similar situation that made you so passionate about teaching officer wellness and having that split between work and life and making sure that we're on top of ourselves mentally, spiritually, physically, whatever the pillars are for you. Was there a moment where you were just like, man, I really need to get this figured out, and it was kind of like an aha moment?
There were a couple. I was assaulted in 2000 and I got to think now when it was. When I got assaulted, the inmate punched me, and there was some exchanges that happened. I was able to get out of the cell. I sat back there and I thought, holy smokes, did this just really happen? I called for some backup. Sergeant comes down. What's going on? I said, I just got punched by an inmate. Oh, you all right? Yeah, I think I'm all right. Is he all right? I said, yeah, he's sitting on his bunk, I guess. He goes, all right, well, write your report. Get it to me by the end of the shift. Okay. And so I don't know if anybody's been assaulted before, but it screws your mind up a little bit, right? And I started thinking about, well, thank God it was his fist and not a shank.
Right.
And that could have ended and so it starts playing in your head. And all of a sudden you start changing your way of doing things. And at that point I thought, well, there's no help. I got nothing. I got told by a sergeant to write a report by the end of my shift. Again, that was early on, right? So now we got to a point where we started thinking about the wellness of our staff. And when I say we got to that point, it was a few years later, and then we had 2 staff that were assaulted. And after they were assaulted, we had support groups. We had, crisis intervention team come in and they sat with the people that were involved. And we started getting more and more inmates. We started having more suicides in our jail. We started having more assaults. Things started getting worse in corrections with Sherburne County, and there was a high need for, we've got to do something with our staff. We've got to give them outlets, And so now within the last 10 years, we've gotten the peer support groups. We've got, that system all set up, and we got outreach programs, and we got, 2 county chaplains now, one for the road, one for the county, correctional officers. So we're building more on what we really need as corrections.
Mm-hmm.
And I think one of the big thing that happened, that we had a very serious assault on one of our correctional staff, and he's a friend. And when you see a friend's life change forever, it really drives home the point of knowing how to deal with things in a healthy way. Not alcohol, not porn, not, something abusive, but in a healthy way. Well, if you look at our society today, what's out there? There's not a whole lot of things out there, right?
Right. Yeah.
I watched some of your blogs about you work out. That's a good stress reliever. And absolutely 100% it's a stress reliever. When I was working at Sherburne and we would hire somebody, one of the first questions I asked them is, what are your hobbies? And they're like, what do you mean? Well, what do you do for fun? What's for fun? They're like, well, we I don't know. I guess I fish, and I guess I do this. And I said, well, just make sure that you understand what you do for fun, because you need to do that. You got to figure out a way to separate your work and your home life. You've got to figure out how to do that. You have to have a separation between the two. A lot of other occupations, you don't need to. I mean, it's healthy if you do. But in corrections and the law enforcement, you have to have that separation. I know I'm rambling, but I just sat in on a sheriff's conference yesterday, and the gentleman who spoke, can't remember his last name, Joshua, but he was one of the leader. He was the lead commander that went into the Las Vegas shooting at the hotel.
Wow.
And he was the one that kicked open the door and went into the. But he tells his story about that whole thing and how it went down, and how he has to deal with stress, and his team, and it was very interesting to hear how they were going up the elevator and they're getting ready to go in, and this guy's actively shooting, and he says to his team, he says, all right, guys, you guys are doing a fantastic job. In fact, the beers are on me afterwards. He's trying to lighten the mood and keep people calm, but he says it's really hard to do that.
Mm-hmm.
You're in a high stress situation, and then to come down off that, when it's over with, you just don't switch off a light. That stuff sticks with you,
Right.
and it sticks with you for a long time, and you got to know how to deal with it healthy, right? And you can't do the non-healthy ways.
Right.
And but it was interesting to hear him talk about that, and some things that we need to do in our lives today. We need to have those plugins that we can do away from work that give us a good regeneration. I need to go fishing. I need to go golf. I need to go run. I need to go push some weights up. I need to do something. We need to have that. And so, getting back to when people first start in my work, that was really a hot topic for me. And within the first 2 or 3 days, I was telling them that when you leave here, you go home. You don't take any worksheets home. You don't take any tests home. You go home and enjoy life at home. Because one thing is for certain, that if you walk out of here and you get hit by a bus and you die, they're going to replace your position by the end of the week. And you can't, right? But if you walk out of here today and get hit by a bus, they can't replace your position as a father, as a brother, as a friend, as a sister, mother. They can't replace that.
Mm-hmm.
So what's more important? Is it your work that can be replaced, or your position at home? That can't be replaced. So that's where we need our focus, is on being healthy, being smart, enjoying life when you get out of work. I mean, what do you get? 12-hour shifts, 8.5-hour shifts, whatever they are.
Mm-hmm.
That's 24-hour a day. there's a reason why they call it a present, because it's a present. Take it.
Take advantage of it. Yeah,
Right.
I love that. Well said.
And
So,
one more thing, Bailey.
absolutely.
I'm going to cut you off, but
No, you're good.
to your defense, not your defense, but to your credit, I've used it now 3 times since I heard it from you. I always said that negativity is a cancer. It's the only cancer that is contagious by touch or by contact. And so I've used it 3 times now since I've heard it. You say that a ship can only sink by the water it gets inside. It doesn't sink by the water around it. It only gets sunk by the water that you let inside.
Mm-hmm.
So if your heart's pure and you're a positive person and you get done with work and you go home and you enjoy life and you enjoy your grandkids, you enjoy your kids, you enjoy your sports, you enjoy your hobbies, your ship's not going to sink.
Mm-hmm.
But if you allow that negativity to fill into you, that's where things start to go bad with it. And so that's one of the things that I impressed again when new people were hired. Man, you got to have a good outlet, right? Don't take any of this stuff home.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. No, and it really is. And if you, I think I just made a post not too long ago too. The other day, it was a joy, and this is when it comes to bringing other people, helping other people out, or having those outlets. It's a shared joy is a double joy. A shared sorrow is half a sorrow. So when you are reaching out to other people and you're joyful, you're spending time with your fishing or with family or whatever, that shared joy is going to double when you're with people. And if you're reached out for people when you need help and you take accountability for these things, you say, hey, I need a therapist. Hey, I need to get in the gym. I need a physical trainer. Hey, I need to get into church. I need to talk to a pastor. And when you're talking to those people, that sorrow doesn't double. It gets cut in half. You're taking that away. And like, and I love that analogy of the boat and stuff getting inside of you, letting it affect you. You bring that stuff home and you think about it. And that was me yesterday. Even I came home and I didn't have the greatest day at work. And I just was thinking about it as I'm holding my son, as he's, laughing and smiling, my newborn baby. He's 3 months old yesterday. And like those things were on my mind. And I was like, what am I doing? Like, get out of here with these thoughts. Enjoy the moment. And, on Sunday, the pastor was talking about baptism and the visualization of coming up out of the water and being refreshed new with that life in Christ, because he died on the cross for those bad things, like you said, that the alcohol abuse, the being stuck with pornography, whether it's cussing or your anger, all these different things that maybe people resort to when they let too much of that fill up within them. And just like, if I saw my dog running around outside with a dead squirrel, like chasing it, you're probably not going to let him do it. For me, I'm going to be like, quit playing with dead things. Like, get out of here with that. What are you doing? And that analogy kind of hit me on Sunday. Like a lot of times I am playing with those dead things that died with Jesus on the cross. Like, why am I concerning myself with this anger or this self-doubt, or, looking down on myself like, oh man, I'm a screw up, I'm a failure. Like all that stuff, that's dead talk, get out of here with that. And so that's been something that I'm trying to do more lately is, when you do get out of work, let work stay at work. Don't sit there holding your newborn son, 3-month-old son, thinking about all the things that went wrong, all the negative stuff. It's just like you said, life's too short. You get hit by a bus, they're going to replace you at work. You hit by a bus, your negative thoughts and all that, it's not going to care. What's going to matter is, your son, your family, all those good things. So I appreciate you touching on that.
Yep.
To wrap it up, I want to talk about just a little bit about self-defense, because that's what I was up there doing the class is to teach how to instruct use of force, self-defense tactics. And you do a lot of classes, I think you said, for women or for anybody who wants to do different self-defense tactics. Now having a son myself, this becomes more relatable and something that I've been trying to figure out for a while. I was driving down the road the other day. I guess it was a couple during the school year. Graduation just happened, so it was a couple months ago. And there was a girl waiting for the bus on the corner of a street, sitting there, standing there, and she couldn't have been 14, 13. And she had her her phone, looking down at her phone, had her headphones in, and she's out and right on the street corner. There's houses, just cars driving by. And part of me wanted to go tell her, like, hey, what are you doing? Like, get your headphones out. Like, where's your parents? Like, we need to have a chat with your parents. They need to be telling you this. And another part of me is like, man, I would be robbing that girl of her innocence, of her childhood, because she's that young. She shouldn't have to be looking out for predators and all these evil things. And that's just a very unfortunate circumstance of what our world is today, where we even have to think about that. And even you brought up like going on mission trips and stuff, and going and venturing out. It reminded me of the movie Taken with Liam Neeson. He's got his daughter who's out and about in different countries, and she ends up getting taken. And for me, it's like I would like to hear your opinion on where's the line between allowing our kids to be kids without being terrified, or how do we allow people who because being immersed in corrections and in law enforcement, you see the bad side, the dark side of society. And so when you're out at dinner, you may be positioning yourself in a way to where you can see an exit, or you can see everybody because you don't want people to get behind you. Or you may be having a conversation with somebody at church and you're kind of looking around as they're talking to you. They might be like, what are you doing? Talk to me, man. And you're kind of just like, well, I'm used to just having my head on a swivel. Now for the average person, or for somebody else that isn't in law enforcement or military or whatever background, I guess, what's your opinion on sharing with people how to be safe, but not taking away their innocence if they're younger, or taking away their happiness or their joy without being absolutely terrified to go explore or just to exist? Do you have an
Right.
opinion on that?
Yeah, it's a fine line, right? And you touched on a lot of topics that I do that I don't expect my kids to, army crawl to church or army crawl to, that's not, but as a parent, we're in charge of that. We're the ones that are supposed to be looking over our children and watching out for our children. So as parents, that's going to be our job. And then as they get older, we encourage them to maybe do this differently, or maybe do that differently, or get your headphones out of your ear when you walk. And then again, as they get older and they can retain some information, maybe you throw a scenario at them. What would you do if somebody were to steal your wallet? How fast can you cancel your credit cards? How can you, what happens if you have a strange person who walks up to you and says that your dad told me I'm supposed to pick you up and take you home? There's an emergency at your house. Do you, run that scenario through depending on what age they are, if they can accept that information.
Right.
But as a parent, we're on double duty. We're on our own safety duty, but we're on our family duty.
Mm-hmm.
And more so as a father than as a mother. And I'm not taking anything away from the mothers. But as a father, we're supposed to protect our family. And we're a little bit more heightened than anybody else. So when they're at a young age, we make sure that they understand that, I'm here for your protection, and don't do anything to a stranger, blah, blah. And then they get older. Hey, what happens if you were to lose your wallet, or somebody tries to break into your car, or, again, it all depends on what age they are and if they can accept that information. But a lot of times it falls to the parents that, it's our job to keep them safe. It's our job to protect them.
Mm.
We can give them some ammunition, but, we've heard the saying that you can lead a horse to water. You just can't make them drink.
Right.
So we can talk into her blue in the face, but if somebody doesn't want to accept that information, it's, I did what I could do.
Mm-hmm.
You said it earlier that it's a sad state now in our society. Evil exists, but it always has existed.
Mm-hmm.
And we can't change that. But what we can change is our ability to adapt to it.
Mm.
So evil exists back in the Roman days, but it was a different evil.
Right.
We now have evil now, but it's a different evil as well. So we have to adapt to that and figure out how can we make that better.
Mm-hmm.
Right? We don't. I always told my kids, nothing good ever happens after 11. So you're in the house by 10 o'clock.
Mm-hmm.
So and now today, it's almost like you're in the house at 9. We're changing. So yeah, we got to do a little bit. I think too much is too much.
Mm-hmm.
We got to learn how much is how much is that? What do
Right.
we give? So when I go to teach at the high schools and I teach these kids some safety awareness things, I if we were to get physical, we talk about that raindrop technique that
Mm-hmm.
right, and that's it. I leave it at that, and I don't want to give them too much, and I focus about an hour and a half worth of mostly lecture and scenarios. What about Facebook? What about social media? What should you put on there? What should you not put on there?
Mm-hmm.
What happens if something's placed on there about you that isn't true? What are you able to do about it?
Mm-hmm.
And then, we talk about that. We talk about there's a website called zabasearch.com, and you can put in anybody's name and find out anything on them. Where they live, their address, their phone numbers, their credit cards, how much they are spending, if they have any. It's amazing what we can find on that social media. So that's one big thing I talk to the students about is that be aware of what you're doing on it.
Mm-hmm.
It's a great thing, but you got to be smart about it. And
Right.
some people go, I don't even pay attention to that Facebook. That's so stupid. I tell you what, it was inspirational to me. When my wife is in surgery for 4 to 6 hours and I'm getting these Facebook messages and sayings and verses and inspirational quotes, and man, it's a huge thing for me and my family.
Mm-hmm.
My daughter actually got a teaching job because of Facebook. She asked, "Hey, I just graduated. Anybody got any openings?" And
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it can be a good thing, but it can also be a really bad thing.
Right.
And I think they need to know about that as well. So, but I don't want to overload them, right? So
Right.
I just want to give them little bits and pieces of it. And um, I think that, when you get a kid that's 14, 15, 16 years old and you overwhelm them with a whole lot of this is bad, this is bad, this is bad, that you're shutting them off,
Right.
right? So we always want to introduce some good things with them before. So, like you said, it's a fine line. How
Right.
much do you give? What do you say? What do you not say? Unfortunately, there are a lot of not a lot, but there are parents out there that believe that that it won't happen to me.
Mm.
It's not going to happen to my kids. That's the cities thing. That's what happens in the cities. It doesn't happen in Sherburne or wherever else you're at. And when they throw that blind eye to it, and then things do happen, then they want to blame society right away when
Mm.
it was our responsibility to keep them safe in the first place.
Right. I love that you touched on that because that honestly wrapped up the question. It's you don't want to scare them in thinking this is going to happen. This guy's going to steal you or this guy's going to do this. It could. It's not that it's not. It's not. Don't worry about it. And it's not. Oh, it's going to happen. It's somewhere in the middle of what happens if this does happen. And I love that you said the different scenarios because it provides an opportunity for them to kind of figure it out on their own. Maybe
Mhm.
that parent talks to that girl who's 14 and says, okay, what happens if you're standing here and you don't see who's coming up behind you? Or what happens if you have your headphones on? And like, well, maybe I can't, I probably can't hear if somebody's talking to me. Or, oh, now my attention isn't where it could be looking around. And that might provide them a little more opportunity to kind of figure it out on their own too, by asking those questions, those scenario based questions. So
Right.
that's
And then,
awesome.
and when they get a chance to answer it, that gives them the power.
Mm,
All of a sudden, they believe that they're smart, and they were, and even if they don't give you the perfect answer, and you just kind of help them with a little answer, they
right.
still have that power. That okay, and he really cares about me. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
he's not lecturing me. He's actually okay. I get it. I
Mm-hmm.
understand that.
Right.
Or she is, whatever
Yep.
the case might be.
Exactly. Well, cool, man. I can't believe it's already been an hour. This was a very fun conversation. Where can people find you if they're interested in your training? Obviously, you have a lot of different things from correctional officers to just anybody that would be interested in your stuff. Where can
Yeah,
they find you? And
I don't have anything online. I don't have. I'm not that tech. So,
that's all
uh,
right.
but if they want to email me, it's jason.volkers23 at outlook.com.
Awesome.
So jason.volkers23 at outlook.com.
And
And they
then
can text me or they can shoot me an email and I can send them a flyer. I got a couple flyers here that I can send out to them. And
yeah, do you want to just touch on a couple of things you do again, just in case somebody was interested in one of those?
sure, I put my specs back on.
There you go.
So with correctional related classes, there's interpersonal communication skills. and I do that correctional related, or I can do it just public related, meaning that I've had dental offices have me come in there and teach their staff about interpersonal communication skills and
Wow.
verbal judo.
Mm-hmm.
I do inmate supervision classes. I do correctional wellness classes. I do defensive tactics, safety awareness, and self-defense classes. So there are 3 different types of classes. And I do all ages. I do everything from, I've done a 9-year-old all the way up to my mom, who was 84, I think, the last time she took it. Con games, the art of manipulators. I do CPR, basic first aid, 2 types of classes, one for the public, obviously, and then one for corrections. So I do that. I do suicide awareness classes, report writing classes, how to be an effective FTO, and how to be an effective instructor classes. So those are my basics that I do with my company. I'm now working on safety at church classes.
Oh,
It's
cool.
for protective units that work at churches. So I'm doing that one, and then I'm doing it's a safety awareness class it's called workplace violence. So I teach, doctor offices, dental office, mechanic office, whatever, active shooter or active threat training. So I
Mm-hmm.
teach those classes as well now.
All awesome stuff. Well, great. Well, Jason, thank you so much again for taking the time to come on here. It definitely means a lot, and it's been fun to hear your story. And I'm sure this is not the last time we'll be talking. It'd be cool to keep in touch with you, and maybe if you're up in the Crowing area, shoot me a text or something, and we can grab dinner or a drink or something.
Yeah, will do, Bailey.
All right.
I appreciate it. Thank you for
Yes.
asking me to be here.
Yes. Thank you, Jason. It was a pleasure.